Powered by Virginia Radio.
I wasn't sure. Okay. So the music goes off. Right. Yeah, I'm the first time I thought it was what happened. So the Reverend is talking to the front of you, right? The Reverend is talking to the Reverend is talking to the Bible study. Hello, and thank you all for coming to my podcast. We're having a good time here before we even get started. We're already having a good time, folks. That tells you it's going to be a good show. All righty. Listen, my name is Big Al. I'm the HNIC. The podcast, if you have stumbled into, thank God, is called Let Me Say Something. Okay, and listen, folks, I told y'all I'm going to have a special guest today, and I meant that. And the person, and let me just tell you, this person is going to talk to you about is going to enlightenment. She's going to empowerment. She's going to talk to you. She knows she'll talk to you about pain. What she does is she gives her gifts, and we are appreciative of that. She's an author. She's a poet. Okay, and she is living life. All right. I want to take the time to introduce you guys to my special guest, Tonya Sinclair Swindell. Hey, Tonya, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. Good. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you came. Listen, Tonya, just so y'all know, guys, in case you can't see this is her book here, okay? And it's called Nourishment and Encouragement, okay? Nourishment and Encouragement, okay? So y'all will get that. It's a really good book with a number of poems that are really, really helpful. And I got to say, it really is. I can see it being very inspiring for a lot of people there, you know.
Thank you.
All righty. Now, but before we get started, I want to talk about you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How did you get started on this road? You know, author, writing poetry. You know, how did you get started on this?
Well, I think just going through stuff, you know, going through stuff in life. I tell a lot of people, you can ask most people I talk to, I tell them that poetry is therapy for me. It just really helps me to process my emotions and my feelings. But as far as writing goes, a lot of that started about 2015. I started writing inspirational articles in my local newspaper in Suffolk News Herald. And eventually it began to be poetry. It kind of turned into poetry. Okay. And then also I would go to over at the Charles H. Taylor Center over in Hampton. They would have events where you look at art and then you write poetry based on it. And so
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun too. I miss those days. I haven't been back in a while.
They stopped that?
Yeah, they did.
Wow.
Unless they started again, I don't know.
Probably for COVID.
But that added a lot to my poetry as well, and so it just kind of built from there. And then I decided to compile them into that book, so that people could read and be inspired. There it is again.
Okay. And like I said, the name of the book is Nourishment and Encouragement. Okay. Poetry for your mind, body, and soul. Okay. And of course, the author, Tonya Sinclair Swindell, who we have the pleasure of speaking with right now. We're with Powered by Virginia Radio Network. If you want to give us a call, folks, 797-964-9367. That's Powered by Virginia Network, 757-964-9367. All righty. So since you've been writing poetry since 2015, and basically just about your life's experience?
Yeah.
Because I know you're a motivational speaker too.
Yeah. Yes. I would say that. I haven't actually spoken to a group in that way, but as a part of my job as an mental health occupational therapist,
right.
I do speak to groups when we have group sessions with patients and things like that. And then also just in my daily life, with friends and individuals I come across, I really think, I really feel like the encouragement is one of my gifts. I find myself a lot of times just, encouraging people, and I always feel like I get it back. When I give it, I get it back. I may not get it directly back from that person.
Right.
But I feel the sense that I've done what I was supposed to do, or said what I was supposed to say in that instance, or written what I was supposed to write, and in that way encouraging others. Okay. So, yeah.
That's excellent. You know, one of the things I will say, you mentioned mental health, and years ago when I graduated, I was in that field for a brief time. It's a very tough field, by the way. And I was in Washington, D.C., worked at a place called Chestnut Lodge, and it was a mental hospital for rich people. Okay.
All right.
So I got stories, but we can't go into them now. But anyway.
I know you do.
You know, but you do occupational therapy, you know, which is under the umbrella of mental therapy. But why is it that Black people, and I know that's changing slowly, but why is it that we resist going to someone to help us with our minds?
That's a good question that gets talked
with
about
our mental
a lot.
health.
I think stigma, you know, there's a concern that people might think I'm crazy. You know, I have a therapist. I go to a therapist. And I actually got a shirt recently that says Jesus plus therapy. You know, and it's a good thing for me.
Right.
Writing is also a good thing for me. But as far as why, I think that whole stigma of people going to think I'm crazy, going to think I'm out of my mind, that I can't make my own decisions. And I think there's a fear there that...
but what is the fear, though?
Fear, I guess the way that they would be treated, you know, by other people. It's a concern, and I can't speak for everybody, but a concern about how I'm going to be viewed by other people, other people's opinions, and how they see me.
But see, the thing that this is the thing that bothers me is that in every neighborhood, you've been in these neighborhoods too, we know somebody that's pretty much crazy. We know Bobo down the block or CC around the corner. We know he or she, they're crazy. But we don't do nothing except stay out of the way, or we placate them. Okay, CC. All right. Yeah, okay. You know, but we don't ever say, hey, man, you need some help, and we need to get you some help. You know, we never say that. I know I didn't say it. You know, and I kind of feel bad. Like, so I'm assuming that is that a Black culture thing? Because I don't, in other communities, you know, you don't see a whole lot of crazy people walking around in the community.
They're there, though.
I'm not saying they're not there, but they're in the house. They're in the house. They're in the house contained.
They might not be walking around the street, and their families may have means to keep them more you know, in a more confined situation, you know, so that they're not rambling or running all over the place and that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
So mental health is for the people that have means as opposed to the people that don't?
No, it's for everybody.
Okay.
It's for
but
everybody.
I'm just saying the access to it.
Well, I think there are some instances in which means can impact whether or not a person has access to mental health services. There are community service boards and things like that, which I don't know a lot about, to be honest with you, but I know that there are some provision for, you know, people who are out in the community that may not have, you know, all the means that you would hope. To be able to get services. Right. And thank God for that.
I understand.
Yeah.
You know, I just wish that the government would reach out a little bit more to those some of the urban communities, some of the downtrodden communities, etc. You know, and just because mental health is really something that we, as community, in my opinion, we missed the boat on.
Okay.
You know, and people keep saying, you know, police are shooting people and so forth. Some of those people, you know, some, not that they have it coming and not that they should be shot and killed, but a lot of them should not have been on the street. Some of them should not have been on the street.
Yeah, I have to agree.
But I don't want to digress, okay? That's a whole another subject matter. All righty. We want to talk about your book here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I've read some of these. I haven't read all the poems, but I've read a number of them, and this is really good stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you that question that I asked you before we came on the air, okay, which is, why is it that when a woman writes a poetry book, or her first poem is about pain?
I can't speak for everybody. Al, but it's the second poem in the book, And
it's on page 2. It's on page 2,
it's the
people.
Second, but it is
it's
the
on
second
page
one.
2, people.
But that as I was saying before, that poem is called A Poem About Pain. It's really one that most people, when I ask, because I've asked people for feedback, which one really speaks to them, and a lot of people say that particular one because everybody can relate to it. Everybody can relate to experiencing pain in some way, in some form or fashion. And what I try to do with that poem is to kind of put a positive spin on pain, if you will, to say that pain has a purpose, right? And that there's a lot of instances where pain, I think pain was a motivator, was I think how I started it off. It made me act now instead of waiting until later. Right, so there are a lot of instances where just having pain in my body made me go to the doctor.
Okay.
And it made me take advantage of things that I had access to.
But let me just read read some excerpts from this particular poem. It's my favorite poem in the book so far, and pain prompted me to focus on living, on how to achieve holistic healing. Pain allowed me to slow down and wait for answers to be found. Pain led me to accept help instead of trying to do things all by myself. Pain taught me to admit when I'm sorry, while making humility my top priority. Pain made me accept a challenge so I could regain a sense of balance. Pain caused me to rely on prayer, expressed from the mouths of people who care. Pain taught me ways in which weakness could help me develop a spirit of meekness. I like that particular line. Pain showed me how to release stress and avoid the temptation to regress. I mean, every line is pretty powerful. It really is. Very. You knocked this one out the park.
Thank you.
You did. Even though it's on page 2. But
I had to grab them. I had to grab the audience off the top.
Oh, that
so
would.
maybe that's another reason.
Okay.
Maybe that's another reason why.
Now we get to the truth.
Maybe that's another reason why I was.
But no, that's an excellent poem. It really is. And now, as far as pain is concerned, though, is that something that you're? I want to put it in a way that's not offensive. I know it's something that you're drawing from. Has there been a lot of pain in your life?
Well, I guess that's I want to say a relative term, but because different people have experienced pain in different ways, right, in different areas. And in large part, I guess the pain that I have experienced has been just in relationships, and just some basic life experiences. I haven't had any I wouldn't say I've had any major, really major life experiences that a lot lot of people have, but.
Well, I don't. I mean, I'm not sure what major means, but I'm just saying sometimes the death of a parent can cause people to start reflecting.
I have had that.
Things like that. In my case, I lost a child during my wife's childbirth. I mean, so there are certain things that when people say pain, and you're right, it means different things to different people.
Yeah.
As far as how deep that pain is, that's a personal thing, but. When you can read this and you can look at it and you can go through this, folks. Let me tell you something. She's one thing that Tonya specializes in is encouragement. She was saying that off the air, and what this is encouragement. This book here is encouragement. This is not a book to discuss pain or your sorrow. It's not that kind of a book, at least from what I've read. It is more of an uplifting kind of encouragement type of book. So now having said that, okay, it looks like when I go through this, it looks like you have a whole lot of questions, okay. And the one thing, now I got to say, the one thing that I caught that I thought I was the only one that knew about this, the Maroons.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you tell them who the Maroons are?
The Maroons are a group of people. They had been slaves that went to the Dismal Swamp to try to escape slavery, basically. And what's interesting, I want to share about how that poem came about,
Sure.
and I actually explain it within the poem. My poetry covers current events, faith, and history is another thing that a lot of my poetry covers. So this particular one called "A Call to the Descendants of the Maroons" is one that I've shared, I've presented several times here within the Hampton Roads area. But it's talking about the Maroons and how they were had been enslaved and went to the Dismal Swamp to try and escape slavery. But it came about, my family and I were down at the Dismal Swamp one day and we were taking a bike ride. And I didn't know anything about the Maroons, had never heard about it at all. But I happened to, you know how they have those markers out there where they tell you information about the area? And I just stopped to read it before we started taking the bike ride. And that's how I learned about the Maroons. And it just blew my mind out. It blew my mind. As a matter of fact, while we were out there on the trail, it was like the poem started coming to me.
Okay.
And it was like I could see Harriet Tubman and other people just taking, going in front of me on the trail. And I'd stop and I'd get my phone out and I'd write a little bit. And then I'd go a little bit farther and just like we were talking about, the inspiration comes to you. Right. The inspiration came, and then the poem ended up being what it is.
It's interesting, folks, because they don't call it the Dismal Swamp for no reason.
Yeah.
And back in those days, now we've conquered the swamp by now. We've tamed the swamp. Okay, you can ride bicycles over it and all that kind of stuff, and it's very nice. Animals don't jump out the water to grab you. Okay, but back in the day when she's talking about, it was a legitimate swamp. It was very very dangerous. Nobody wanted to go in there. So can you imagine how desperate? Can you imagine how desperate those slaves were to escape slavery, to go into the swamp?
I can imagine.
And I don't know how long they were there. That's what I'm not sure about. How long that I'm thinking they were there, like maybe 3 years, 4 years, something like that.
Well, I've heard that there were some people that that were there for several years. I mean, like until. I don't want to put a wrong number on it.
They had small communities, didn't they?
There were small communities. Not only did blacks live there, but there were some Native Americans that lived there, and some whites lived there in small groups. And I mentioned that in the poem as well. Yeah. But it's just fascinating. So when I drive by on Highway 17, I'm always, my kids now, my husband and everything know about, because I've written the poem and presented it and everything. It still blows my mind to this day. To think about people living in there and finding food. I can't even imagine. Food, filtering water.
At times they were food to other creatures.
I'm sure.
I mean, it's just
bears, snakes.
Yeah, bears, snakes. I think did they have alligators there?
I don't know. I don't know if they did.
But it was one of those things where they it was one of those things where the desperation of the people, and then the strength of the people once they got there to stay there, it's pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing, cause I was saying, oh man, because I said, the Maroons. I said, oh. Yeah. And so I read this, if you don't mind, I'll read a couple of excerpts out of here.
Do.
Let's see, where do I want to start at? I just had a place. Here it is. Okay, the name of the poem is A Call to the Descendants of the Maroons. That's spelled Maroons, in case someone wants to look that up. Okay. I could not help but think of the severity of, excuse me, let me start again. I could not help but think of the severely cut up feet of families on the run. Mothers, fathers, daughters, and sons. They hid among tall trees surrounded by crackling leaves that threatened to reveal their location because of the sound that they were making. Despite the mosquitoes, bears, snakes, the Maroons did whatever it takes to live somewhat peacefully and have a semblance of being free. The Maroons likely used their hands to capture food and work the land. They built systems to filter the rain. You really don't think about that kind of stuff. And ate meals from crops of grain. They made tools out of sticks and stones to build and protect their homes. How they survive. They just survived purely on just will, because they couldn't drink the water. The Dismal Swamp at one point smelled real bad. They had this. It just smelled horrible. It has all kinds of spiders and
all kinds of stuff.
Mosquitoes, all very very aggressive. all very aggressive things. And these people, blacks, were cohabitating with a few whites, with Indians, etc., to survive. You know, so thank you for writing this, because
Yes, sir.
that really touched my heart there, because I was like, wow, I can't believe, you know.
And for it to be such an important, let's say, important story, not just a story, but historical, historically proven. I mean, the archaeologists and things have come and shown that there were people that were living out there. There's so many people that I've come across, Al, that don't even know, have never even heard. As a matter of fact, I was at an event in was it Chesapeake a few weeks ago, and I recited that poem at the time, and there were people there that lived near the Dismal Swamp and had never heard of the Maroons and the fact that they lived there. And part of what I mentioned in there at the end of that is that they say that the people who lived in the swamp, eventually, after they found out that the Civil War ended, they moved out, and I said likely blended back into society.
Assimilated back in.
So if there has not been that oral tradition of passing down, I lived in the swamp one day. I used to live in the swamp. If they have not passed that down to family members, there could be people in the area that don't know that they are descendants of the Maroons.
But you know what? I can understand them not mentioning, because I wouldn't want to mention it. I wouldn't mention that.
I mean, it had to be traumatic in a lot of ways.
I wouldn't mention it. I mean, it's just I can understand people not knowing about it,
right?
But people are trying to forget about it,
right?
You come out of the swamp after 3 years, 4 years, 5, whatever the case may be,
right.
And the only thing you want to do is assimilate and just get to living the right way.
Yeah.
So kudos to the Maroons, man. You guys are.
Most definitely.
I mean, why there hasn't been a movie about you guys is beyond me, because that's a movie.
Yeah.
That's a documentary.
Yeah.
That's a movie right there.
Yeah.
So
hopefully there will be one. Hopefully they'll feature my poem.
Exactly. Shoot.
Let me put in my plug now.
Hey, listen. Maybe at some point we here at the Powered by Virginia can go ahead and get a documentary done or something. Okay?
Hey.
So we're working. We'll see what we can do about that.
Yeah.
Now once again, And folks, I know you got to say, well, what about the book? Well, this is in the book, and you know that here at Powered by Virginia, with this podcast, let me say something. We talk about all things related to Black culture. Okay, that's what we do. All things related to Black culture. Alrighty. So I just want to let you guys know that with this particular, first of all, I want you guys to go out and find the book and buy it. That's the first thing. But also, Tonya, when you write these things, what comes to mind? How do you pick out the subject matter that you want to write about? I mean, like here you have something called the sun takes its time.
Mm-hmm.
The sun takes its time. It doesn't hurry to leave darkness behind. It comes at the breaking of day, when the darkest hours rolls away.
Mm-hmm.
How do you come up with it?
Particular one, I was going through something. I don't remember what it was, but I was just thinking about how, sometimes there's a delay, right? There's a delay in answers coming to me when I want them to come, resolutions coming to problems that there might be, and I think it was just one of those days when I thought about and nature also. Nature really speaks to me a lot of times when I'm out in nature. So thinking about how the sun takes its time, it doesn't hurry, and another thing that made me think about was this song. I love the Clark Sisters. I love the Clark Sisters. They're one of my favorite. They're my favorite group of all time. So right. So the darkest hours just before the day, and it says, "Don't you be discouraged. Don't you be dismayed." So, and thinking about it from a scriptural standpoint, how the darkest hour, and from a natural standpoint, the darkest hour is just before the day. So just when it's dark, it's just before the light comes in. And so I just thought about how the sun takes its time to come back up each day, but eventually it does come back up. And so that's how that one came about. As far as the other ones go, kind of like we were saying before we got on the show, I might be out and I might see a bird. I might see a bird. I might see a lot of times when I'm walking, it'll be, for instance, I just wrote one recently called Extravagant Love. That's not in the book, but I was just out walking, and it started out. The title just came to my mind, Exceptional Love, actually, and it ended up getting changed to Extravagant Love, and I just started, the words just started coming to me, so I jotted them down. So it could be a number of things. It could be dreams. I dream a lot at times. Dreams have inspired a lot of my writing. Nature, relationships, pain.
So Extravagant Love, you told your husband you wrote it about him, right?
Well, he hadn't heard the poem yet, but I guess I need to
don't
read
get in
it to
trouble
him.
like me. Baby, is that about me? Yes. Yes, it is. Let's see. And here's one for COVID. Breath is essential, floating, evaporating, not knowing is stale, landing on bystanders' mask, invading the innocent.
Yeah. And that one, a lot of times in situations, even now, I'm like the only one in the room wearing my mask.
I can't blame you.
I'm like the only one.
I have my mask in my car. I usually bring it here, but I forgot
I
it.
got mine right here on me. But so that one came about just thinking about COVID, which that was a hard time going through the pandemic. I was really feeling depressed at times during the pandemic because I just wasn't able to. It didn't feel at liberty to go out and do as much of the things as I used to do.
Right.
And so writing, ended up being helpful for me at that time. But yeah, COVID-19, that one came about during the pandemic, and so I wanted to include that one as well as social distancing has no color. That one has to do with the pandemic and COVID and that kind of thing. That one started off as something else. It was something else has no color. I can't remember what it was, but it ended up being social distancing has no color because the pandemic affected all of us, no matter what color we are, and it impacted people. And at the time they were really pushing social distancing and doing that 6 feet apart from one another.
Right.
So we were all impacted by it in some way or another, and so that's how that one came about as well.
Now, out of this book, though, do you have a favorite poem?
I do.
No.
I do.
Please
share.
share.
I got to remember what page it's on.
You're going to turn to page 2.
The poem about pain. Not the poem about pain. It is Life Water. It's called Life Water on page 41.
No.
Page 41. This one, would you want me to read some?
Sure, of course.
Okay,
Of course.
it's kind of one of my longer ones. So, but it says it's called Life Water. There's life in the water, and his name is Jesus Christ. He flows like liquid love into our hearts and lives. He purifies, he cleanses, he transports, he sends us floating on a river to destiny. Like Moses sent across water in a basket to his mother, the wife of an Egyptian king. He soothes, he heals, he calms, he stills troubled minds that are bound by fear. He washes, he rinses, he sanitizes, he cleanses the hearts of those who stay near. He simmers, he boils, he evaporates, he spoils Satan's plot to leave guilty stains. He ebbs, he flows, he moves and goes in directions we cannot explain. He quenches, he bursts, he splatters, he works, miracles rain down from above. He sprays, he stays, he settles, he drains into hearts saturated by his love. You want me to keep going?
If the poem keeps going, yes, ma'am.
The poem keeps going.
This is a thrill.
He pours, he spills, he splashes, he thrills children when he says, "Come to me." He surrounds, he covers, sends underwater as a sign, saying, "Yes, I am free." He weakens, he dilutes thoughts that pollute our minds, telling us we're unworthy. He freezes, he stops, he hinders, he blocks our tendency to worry and hurry. He cleanses the palate of people with habits so their taste buds are never the same. He irrigates soil so men can toil and harvest crops of grain. He provides antiseptic, a natural healing ointment to soothe nasty cuts and scrapes. a balm of inner healing to ease the flooding feeling of failure, hurt, and so much pain. There's pain again. He absorbs, seeps through, penetrates into holes filled with dirt and grime. He puts out fires of worldly desires for criminals still doing time. He sustains new life, turning seeds so slight into trees that give us shade. He moistens, he wets, he hydrates, he sets thirsty souls on a path to be saved. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. This is not your average kind. It's a supernatural sort, turning water into port like wine, tasting so divine. He became life water to save his daughter, a woman sitting down at a well, to spare her life from misery and strife so she could run and tell. She didn't hold back, saying, "Come see a man," because she knew God's master plan to save, deliver, heal, and give her 2 feet on which to stand. Life water, life water, life water is mine. Come see a man who is truly divine. He is the only answer for a life filled with disaster. My Savior, great King, Lord, and Master. Life water, it tastes so sweet. Won't you come and drink with me? Life water, Jesus Christ is his name. Once he flows into your heart, may you never be the same. Thank you. Thank you.
I like that one. I like
Life
that
water.
one.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah, I just had a reading from Tonya Sinclair Swindell.
Yes.
Okay, her favorite poem, which is called Life Water.
Yes.
Okay.
Life water.
Okay, and that is here's here. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is a book which really runs the gamut of emotion. At least it does for me. You know, the one thing I like about the way you write is that you're not hitting anybody over the head with anything. You know, even when I talk to you joke with you about the pain, but you're not hitting me over the head with pain.
Right.
You know, I've read some artists, some writers, and when you talk about pain, I mean, they go so deep. It's like, you know, the darkness, this, but it's like, oh God, you know, and they hit you over the head with it. You know, I get it. You're in pain. I get it.
Yeah.
You know, but you don't do that. You know, and her blows are very soft. Pop, pop, pop. You know, so and I like that. I like that. For me, that's good. You know, so now when is your next book coming out?
That's a good question, Al. I'm working on it. That I'm expecting to be another compilation of articles, inspirational articles, like I said, that I was writing. Well, I don't know if I mentioned that before. That was before or after we started. But anyway, I had been writing articles in my local newspaper, Suffolk News Herald, for a few years. Right. And so what I plan to do is to compile a lot of the ones that I wrote in there, as well as some new ones. So I'm working on editing, kind of going back and seeing if that's still what I want to say. If what I said back in 15 is still what I want to say today, and putting them together. I have someone helping me with that to do that. And I also just want to mention that there are some local events coming up on this Thursday, which is the 3rd, I believe. Please do. From 6 to 7:30, I'll be at Grissom Library here in Newport News, where I'm supposed to be on a panel talking about how to write about traumatic experiences. Oh, okay. And then
you said that's Grissom?
Grissom, yeah, Grissom. I haven't been there before, okay. But Grissom.
Is that an elementary school?
Grissom Library. It's a library.
Okay. Is that attached to an elementary school, though?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if it is or not.
Okay, Grissom Library.
Grissom, and then on Saturday.
That's November 4th?
November 3rd.
November 3rd. Thursday, November 3rd. What time?
From 6 to 7:30.
6 to 7:30. Okay.
And then on Saturday the 5th, I'm supposed to be at the main Newport News Library, where I'll be selling my books. I'll be selling my book from 10 to 3. So I hope people will come out. And then also the book can be, you can find the book at a lot of the libraries in the area. I've donated copies to libraries over in Suffolk, Isle of Wight. There should be one that's going to be in the Newport News Library. I've tried to get one over to Hampton. Hopefully they have accepted or received it. So several libraries in the area, as well as in my hometown of New Bern, North Carolina. There are some down in that area at the library. But also the book can be purchased at teacher-withapen.com. teacher-with a pen, and pen is PEN.com.
Okay. All right. Now, just to play devil's advocate just for a moment.
Okay.
Okay. Well, take that back. Before we go there, people that want to write poetry, or people that have written poetry. I mean, what would you? And they may be a little bit too shy to bring it out to the public. What would you say to them?
Well, to say to people who are shy to bring it out, or
people that want to write, but maybe just don't think they can.
Yeah, I would say for me, writing what is true, right? For me, and I like to use my phone. My husband, I'm thankful to my husband. He told me about Google Docs. I use that a lot. I use my phone, and if you have a phone, you can download that app and just type and write in that way. Or sometimes I like to use my pen or pencil and paper. But for me, I said it was therapy for me, writing down how I'm feeling at the time. It may not start off as a poem.
Right.
But for me, a lot of times it ends up rhyming. Except for, well, anyway, a lot of times when I end up writing it, they end up rhyming. But I just start off writing a thought. A thought will come to me. It might be a troubling thought. It might be a hooray kind of thought. It might be I don't know, whatever the case may be. Again, a bird might have inspired me to write. I might be writing about a bird. But just taking the time. For most people, I think, it's probably taking the time. I hear a lot of people get inspired by something, but they don't necessarily stop and take the time to actually write it down. So I would say write down something that's maybe true for you, something that may be on your mind, something that may be helpful to get it out. Right. You may not have anybody else to talk to, but you can put it on paper.
And the one thing I would say too is that she's absolutely right. You can be inspired by anything, but you got to be ready to write it down though.
Yeah.
You got to be ready to write it down, because if you think you're going to remember it by the time you get home, you won't. More than likely, you will not. More than likely, you will not. So just be ready to write at any given time. And the other thing I would add to that too is that don't think of your poetry as good or bad.
I agree.
Okay.
Totally agree.
Just make sure that it's something that's from you, from your heart, from your soul, and just write it. Tonya and I were talking, and said back in the day I used to write a lot of poetry. But I never read it, and my wife found it. She thought it was pretty good, and she tried to encourage me to put it in the book. And so I was like, no, because it was really personal. It was really personal to me, and I couldn't do that, And we're not gonna talk about how she wanted me to write about her, but anyway, but like I said, if that's something that you want to do it. If you want to write poetry, if you want to be an author, if you want to write a novel, whatever the case may be, don't hold yourself back. Yeah. Don't hold yourself back. All right.
And may I say something
Absolutely.
else? Something else that really helped me was writing in my local newspaper, and I know I mentioned that before, but and anybody can do that. Anybody can do that. They don't charge you to send in an article, or and some papers may receive poetry and some may not, but New Journal and Guide, Suffolk News Herald is where I started. And what helped me, as far as what's helping me with my second book in terms of putting my articles together, I got to the point where I would write an article that was about 500 words. And by doing that, each time I write one, that's another chunk. That can be another chapter. If you're doing a chapter book, it can be another article. And then once you have enough, you can compile them into a book. And that way you're taking a little bite out of the elephant each time, right? I'm writing a little bit, I'm writing a little bit more, and with a busy schedule, with a person who has a job and a family and all that, you may not get to just sit and do long binges of writing, but you can do it in chunks. And that has been really helpful to me. And it really primed the pump for me writing on a more regular basis.
And speaking of your family, though, I know you have a husband. I think his name is Frank.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you have 4 kids?
I have 4.
You have 4 kids? 3 boys, 1 girl?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
They say, I do my homework.
Yeah.
But how do they support you?
Very, 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 very supportive. I was just telling my husband last night, I'm just so thankful to him. I was just thanking him for being so, just the encouragement that he has given me and saying, man, your poetry is really good. I really like it. And he's always thinking of ways and giving me opportunities to, you could try this, or have you contacted that person, or what do you think about this, or have you, that kind of thing. And then my children, they come when they're able to come to different presentations that I've had. Also, they just listen. They listen when mommy's like, will you listen to this again? Or they read it for me. I just had one of my sons, he read one for me recently, that new Extravagant Love poem. I had him to read it so I can hear if it sounds right, if it's, fitting together right. So each one of my children, I believe, at some point in time have either listened to or read poetry from mommy so that I can, get it like I want it.
Right.
So they've been extremely supportive, as well as my mother and my brother and other family members as well.
On this particular show, like I said, I talk to community heroes, the 757-804, and they could not be community heroes without their family being involved and being supportive. She could not do this without her family supporting her.
Right.
Okay. And excuse me. And I just want you guys to know is that we are looking for community heroes. If you know anyone that is unselfishly helping a community, whether it's seniors, whether it's homeless, whether it's children, whether helping them mentally with prose, with writing, it doesn't make any difference. You let me know, okay? And the number here is 757-964-9367. All righty, we're gonna pretty much end it, but of course I'm gonna let Miss Swindell have the last word, okay? And Tonya, take us out. What do you want the audience to know?
I was thinking about one of my poems. It's called Change. Okay. Change isn't easy but necessary. Discomfort, I feel, is customary. Doubts are always secondary to results that will be legendary.
All righty. That poem is in this book, by the way. That one I did read. Okay. That was in this book. Listen, guys, I want to thank you for taking the time to come to my podcast and to meet the authoress, Tonya Sinclair Swindell. I keep missing the Sinclair part. This is Tonya Sinclair Swindell. She's an author. She's a poet. She is a motivational speaker. She is a person that offers encouragement, and that's what her poetry does for me. Offers a lot of encouragement. So once again, this is the name of the book. It is Nourishment and Encouragement: Poetry for Your Mind, Your Body, and Soul. And when were you doing your book signing? Where and when?
On the 5th of November, which would be Saturday at the main library in Newport News.
Okay. So if you want her, so you can get one of these, you can get a book, get her to sign it. Okay. Now you got to buy the book. Okay. Buy the book. Okay. Buy the book and get her to sign that. And like I said, it'll be on at the main library in Newport News. That's going to be on this Saturday from
10 to 3.
From 10 till 3, November 5th. So make sure you show up and show up and let's give her some support. Okay, let her know. We don't want her to be one of those artists that are sitting there by herself and everybody just walks past. She's just sitting there, books are there, and people just kind of walk past you. We're not going to do that. Okay, I might show up myself and say hi.
Yeah, come on.
All righty. And I might even sit with you.
But come on. And teacher-withapen.com also if you want to get it online.
Okay, say it one more time, a little bit slower.
Teacher-with-a-pen, pen is spelled PEN.com.
Folks, this is powered by Virginia Radio Network. This is the podcast, Let Me Say Something. I am Big Al, the HNIC. Thank y'all for joining me. Till next time, love y'all. We out.
Powered by Virginia Radio